Amazing.
And we are live. What's up, everybody? Checking out my stuff
Hopefully
here.
everybody's having a great weekend so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't mind me. I'm still arguing with my laptop over here. So if I can't see the comments, guys, I apologize.
Nope.
Just a second, I gotta pause. Okay. All right, that's better.
Cut that out. All right. Wow, guys, thanks for coming out this week. Who do we got? We got Dagan and Rob. We've got Deliberately Bearded Ron. We have got the McMahon, the Michael Payton. Nice, boys. Very nice.
Yeah, thanks for coming and hanging out with us, guys. We appreciate it.
Yeah. You never know what's going to happen in show 2 after show 1. Is it going to be a ghost town? Are people going to stop on by?
I was going for a ghost town, but I guess I was wrong.
Yeah. Happily so.
Yeah, I was like, who's going to want to listen to us? But apparently they want to talk to us, Hey, cool. Works for me.
This is the show where we don't give a damn what's in your beard. We hope you enjoy it, but we're talking about film. That's, not to be rude or anything. That's what we're talking about. And this week we have, we're going to go the next 3 episodes. We're kind of going to go around the horn with each of us choosing a focus. And then after that, we're going to reset and see what comes next. So this was Eric kicked us off. So this is Eric's theme for this week. But before we jump in, any news and film stuff any of you guys heard this week? I mean, the chat or Joe or Eric. Anything going on? New stuff coming out? Actors killing one another on a set? Any of that kind of jazz?
Well, last night I watched Jonah Hill's directorial and writer debut film, and it's called Mid-90s. And so, of course, I texted Michael last looks, and he's like, "Oh yeah, if you're digging that, you should definitely check out 8th Grade." And it's another directorial debut, and so we were just chatting back and forth, films. I'm sure you guys have done that with Michael as well. No,
not so much.
Not so much. If I got something to talk about film, I usually message Joe, honestly. Joe's usually the guy I go to.
I'll have to hit him up. That's kind of cool. I'm a Jonah Hill fan.
Yeah, and Michael probably won't be able to be on here for a while. He's lined up with a bunch of gigs. He's working on The Voice, and then his production company has some shoots ahead of him, as well as getting ready for the holiday season with last looks and everything.
Well, good. I'm glad he's making some money. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that he does have all those gigs with these numbers rising across the country. Hopefully he will be able to stay gainfully employed. Camo Cam is in the house, as is Jeff Rice. How's it going, Jeff? Camo Cam says Amber Heard is screwing over Johnny Depp. Sylvester Stallone is being in the new Suicide Squad movie.
That's what I've heard. I was about to say, I heard a couple things on Stallone this week, actually, because I'm actually a big Stallone fan. I know they're not like the most technically sound movies in history when it comes to Sly, but I don't know, something about seeing the 74-year-old still trying to be the action star is pretty cool to me. He's still relevant these days. Yes, Stallone's 73, 74 years old, somewhere around there, man. And Sly's still out there doing it, boy. And the few things I've heard is that he will be in the Suicide Squad, the newest version. I've heard there will be another Expendables movie. They are in the works now of finishing up the script. And that, believe it or not, even though he keeps saying he's not coming back for the next version of Creed, he will be returning for the next Creed movie. Even though he keeps saying he's not, apparently the showrunner for the movie runner for Creed, I should say, went to him and said, "We get what you're saying, that the series should evolve beyond Rocky, but Rocky is part of this. We need Rocky. Yeah. Even if it's not a big role, he needs to be in the movie."
Yeah,
so he is going to come back.
Yeah, at least a cameo.
Yeah, he is going to come back. I don't know if he's going to have as big a role as he's had in the first 2, but he will be back. So there's been some Sly news floating around, actually.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Sly for a long time. Like I say, the very first movie that we went to see in the theaters as a family was Rocky, and then due to some of the scenes in First Blood, which for those that don't know is actually the very first Rambo movie, I almost blew up a school and I got suspended for a few weeks. But that's for another time.
My bigger question is, I can't remember the name of the first Stallone movie I saw because it wasn't any of the popular ones that everybody always talks about. It was one where Stallone was a hood.
Paradise Alley.
Paradise Alley. Yes. There we go. That was the first one I ever saw Stallone in, and I don't know. After that, then I saw the original Rambo, and the original Rambo got me hooked. I'll watch a Rambo movie. I don't care if it's the worst movie on the planet. I'm gonna watch. So I've been a Rambo fan my whole life.
And let's not forget, this is my take. You don't have to agree with it. Stallone had a huge part in WWF exploding due to Rocky 3 and Thunderlips, right?
Absolutely. Right. And it was the perfect storm of putting Hogan in that role as well, because Hogan was exploding. The Rocky movies were huge. You put the two together and it made for mainstream news and appeal for the WWF at the time. And it allowed for a much bigger fan draw. It brought it to a whole new audience, really, that had never even looked at wrestling.
Yeah. And also the whole crossover with Mr. T / Clubber Lang in the movie. And then he teamed up with Hogan in WrestleMania 2 or 3, I think it was.
It was actually the first one.
Oh, that's WrestleMania 1.
It was number 1. And apparently he wasn't. And apparently he wasn't that tough a guy. I think Piper would have chewed him alive if it were a shoot, but that's a story for another time. I'm talking about T there, not Hogan. All right, so we're doing silly films, so I'm going to toss it over to the gentleman to my right and let him kick us off with our fun foray into fun.
Well, the reason I went with silly is comedy's always been big with me. And especially since we did scary movies last time, I figured why not go into silly? And, I could go on and on for hours and hours about silly movies. I just love movies that I could just sit down and watch. I don't have to do anything intellectual. I can just sit down and laugh. And so with that, we're going to get right into my number 3 movie. There's Something About Mary.
Oh, yeah, there is.
And if you haven't seen that movie, it's on Amazon Prime for free. The Farrelly brothers, who are just comedic geniuses, they did Dumb and Dumber. Then they did Something About Mary. And they did Me, Myself, and Irene, and just a slew of other ones, partnering up with Jim Carrey multiple times, and so whoa, that's trippy.
Yeah, I gotta review that.
But yeah, what a lot of people don't. First off, is everybody in the chat seeing this movie? I don't want to break out a fact that might be a spoiler for some people.
Dude, they had to have seen it. I mean, Something About Mary's not like brand new, right?
Yeah. Well, it came out in 1998, and I saw it the day before I flew over to England to visit family and everything else.
How about this? How about from now on, whenever we do one of these, we'll just put up a disclaimer that says spoilers alert.
Yeah.
And if we bring up a film, and they don't want to know the spoilers, they can exit for a minute and come back when that film is done.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That sounds good. Learning as we go, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, originally, for Mary's longtime boyfriend that she almost married, wasn't going to be Brett Favre. Originally, it was going to be the best quarterback in the Patriots organization ever, Drew Bledsoe. Yep, right. I said it. If Bledsoe wouldn't have got hurt, Brady would end up going someplace else.
I couldn't agree with you more. If Bledsoe doesn't get hurt, he wins at least 3 to 4 rings with Belichick before he retires.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry. Just saying.
Well, that was the first choice. Their second choice was Steve Young, being that she's such a 49ers fan in the movie. But Steve Young, being Mormon, didn't want young Mormon kids sneaking in to see him in a movie that had probably, the best lead up to a gag with, how did you get the Franks above, or the beans above the Frank?
That scene was horrifying for me at my age. All right. That was, and from that moment on, I have taken extra care every time I've taken a piss. I'm just saying. I've been very careful.
But yeah, that's one thing I love about the Farrelly brothers. They'll do such a good lead up to a bit that you're like, there's no way they're going to show that. They can't. Oh my God, they showed it. Everything from the hair gel on the ear, and that was a scene that neither one of them originally were excited about doing.
Yeah.
Because Stiller's like, that's just unrealistic. You would feel it on your ear. And when you do that, you see what happens, So, yeah, neither one of those two were thrilled about doing that scene. But once the Farrelly brothers kind of walked him through it, and then they showed him the dailies, they're like, yeah, it's got to stay. So that's what I got on Something About Mary.
All right. Hey, Joe, StreamYard is not letting me play ball with the images right now. It has blocked my screen.
Huh. Okay.
So happens. I'll be.
Oh, and now we lost Joe.
Yep. So I'll do.
You're going to do the modeling of your cup?
A cup of my favorites. I've got like 3 or 4 of these tumblers. Each one.
Joe's back now. But what I was going to say was, what always amazed me about that movie, and maybe this is just me, right? The title of it made you think that there was this amazing looking woman, and Cameron Diaz is not an ugly girl by any stretch of the imagination, but she's not ultra hot to me either. She's not like one of the most gorgeous women you've ever met in your life. So I found it even funnier that all these guys were like losing their minds over her.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Joe. I think the movie made her cuter than she was to me, if that makes any sense. Like she gained attractiveness after watching the movie for me.
Right, yeah. And there's been movies where she has played the sexy role and she's looked very good, but you can tell that there's a lot of add-ons going there to make her look more attractive than she really is. Not that she's ugly by any stretch. To me, it was funnier that, she's not this ultra insanely hot girl. She was okay, and they were all still going nuts over her.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it was also her character's personality that really won all these guys over. It just wasn't that she was beautiful. It's just that she was empathetic. She was, open to Ted when he was, getting his junk caught in a zipper, just because he kind of stuck up for his brother. And also originally for the role of Warren, Chris Farley tried out for that role.
Oh, really?
And they gave him the boot. They didn't think he would be able to do that role as nicely as they needed it to be done. They want Warren to be a solid character, but they didn't want it to be an over the top like Chris Farley is
known for.
Yeah.
That's what Farley was known for. He was known for taking things way over the top.
Mm-hmm. All right, Joe, do you want to start up yours next or do you want me to go next?
Well, I'm cool with going next if that's what you guys want. So when we talked about doing this, we all talked about our different ways of looking at this. And for me, I was going to look at one of my favorite actors and just spotlight 3 of his movies. And for me, I'm looking at Adam Sandler and his career on this one. Adam got his start through the SNL years and all that, and really has become known, for me at least, as one of my favorite comedians ever. And the movie I'm working with, one of the first movies I'm working with today is Grown Ups, which the whole theme behind Grown Ups is probably the easiest theme any actor had to work with, where it's him and his best friends getting back together. Their coach dies from their young baseball or basketball team, their championship basketball team. So the team, which was all the best friends, gets back together for the funeral, and they spend a week up at the lake house. And what was so easy about it for them was they're really all best friends. So you're shooting this movie, but really it was just them hanging out as friends. That was really the start of all this too, because you've got Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, Kevin James, David Spade, Rob Schneider. They're your main stars in this movie. They're all best friends, as close as you can get. And essentially from this moment on, every movie that any one of these actors does is a Happy Madison production. Adam Sandler is behind everything these guys do. I mean, you could almost say that if it wasn't for Adam Sandler right now, these guys wouldn't be working anymore, because I haven't seen them do anything that's not a Happy Madison production.
Especially on Netflix.
Yeah, especially on Netflix, and even the major releases. Like when you look at Kevin James, Paul Blart, Here Comes the Boom, all these things have been Happy Madison productions. So without that company, these guys might not really have much going for them right now. But Adam believes in staying faithful to his friends. He believes in casting his friends even before these guys. You go back to the original movies and you can point out the same actors throughout every movie. They might not have the biggest roles, but they're always there. And one of the bigger roles in this movie was Adam Sandler, who was named Lenny in the movie, his wife, right? Who was played by Salma Hayek. And there's a crazy story behind this. The studio actually did not want to cast Salma Hayek. They didn't like her. And what they said to Adam almost caused the whole movie to get shut down. They said to Adam Sandler, we'd like to go a different direction. She's too ethnic for us. And Adam came back to them and said, I already cast her. It's my movie. And if you say those words to me again, you won't like how it ends. And that was it. It was never discussed again. Selma got the role. She came on for the second one. But I found it amazing that, you know, we're talking about 2010 here. We're not talking 1950s. But in 2010, they were still trying to raise issue about that she was too ethnic looking to be with Adam Sandler, which I don't really know what the whole point to that was, but you know, what are you going to do, right?
Yeah.
It had an $80 million budget, right? Which Sandler gets criticized quite a bit, right? If you follow Adam's career, Rotten Tomatoes, they're not very friendly to Adam Sandler. But his co-writers, his producers, all that have said it best. The studios don't care because they make money off of Adam. And Adam doesn't care because as he walks down the street, people constantly yell out lines from his movies. So while the critics might not like it, his fans, like me, are nuts, and we line up to watch everything he puts out. And Grown Ups was one of the success stories. $80 million budget, brought in $270 million worldwide. So there was definitely money to be made here. And one of the things you love about it is the ties to the other movies, like Always with Adam. And in this one, Kevin James' character, Eric Lamisoff, is actually mentioned in 3 different Adam Sandler films. He's mentioned in The Wedding Singer as a next door neighbor who had a better price on their wedding photographies, right? He's mentioned in Click, if you remember the part where he says, hey, your boss died, so now you're the boss. You know, that part where he says that so-and-so killed himself, so now you're the new CEO? Well, same guy again. And he was also in, what was that? Pixels, the Lamisoff character, but it was Ludlow Lamisoff in that one. So Adam, he just likes to keep things. It's almost like some weird Stephen King universe with Adam Sandler at the helm, where everything ties together in some way, right?
Nice.
So it's always been cool. And just one little thing. Thank God Adam has somebody putting him in check every now and again, though, because the original Grown Ups movie, had he have put it out the way he wanted to, would have been 3 hours and 45 minutes long. So Thank God there's somebody on the editing floor keeping Adam in check.
Yeah, because by that time he had enough of a name and enough cachet that he might have been able to make that work. I mean, Pulp Fiction or Kill Bill was supposed to be one movie, and Tarantino split into two because it was so damn long. So that would have been an interesting discussion between Adam and the studio.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's all I got for this one. Joe, I believe you're up, sir.
All right. So I was originally going to go and do silly sci-fi, and I literally couldn't find copies of the films anywhere. So then I just went with one of my favorite wits and guys I like as a writer, and that's Kevin Smith. So we're going to look at Kevin Smith's two earliest films, and then we're going to look at his most recent film. But the theme here through all of this is Jay and Silent Bob. The characters Jay and Silent Bob. So, of course, we're talking about Clerks to start off with. The
legendary Clerks.
The legendary
Clerks.
Taking place in Leonardo, New Jersey. Do you know how far you're from Leonardo, Joe? I don't know if you know where that town is.
I believe the last time we drove past the Quick Mart, it took us about an hour and 15 minutes to get there.
Nice. And the Quick Mart is still there.
It was there. It was there 6 years ago. That's what I can tell you. It was there 6 years ago. We did make the ride. We did stop the whole nine. Like, we did go. The video store is not there anymore, though.
No. Smith, he's basically just kind of your stereotypical student. He decides he wants to make film one day after watching Richard Linklater's Slacker. I think it's Richard Linklater. Mm-hmm. He goes up to Canada, to Vancouver, to a film school where he meets Scott Mosier, the guy who's going to become the producer for all of his films. And he doesn't finish film school. He thinks he's got enough, and he really wants to shoot this film, Clerks. Now, if you've seen Clerks, I think it's a very polarizing movie. I think some people could go into and go, what the hell is this? And leave after the first 10, 15 minutes. It was a critical darling. I have issues with parts of it, but as far as the silly and some of the jokes in that film, they're absolutely standout funny. And of course we get one of my favorite character pairs, duos, in Jay and Silent Bob, and this is one of the first shots you're going to get of Jay and Silent Bob right here. Now, this is Jay Muse was a kid. He wasn't an actor. He was a kid that hung around Kevin Smith and would say weird things like Snoochie Boochie, and Kevin Smith just liked him, and so he cast him in the film. All of this entire film is just Kevin Smith's buddies and friends, and he shoots it on a $27,000 budget. And he sells his comic collection because he was a big comic collector at that time, borrows money from his parents, and maxes out his credit cards to sell it. One of the reasons it's to make it, I should say, one of the reasons it's in black and white is because of the cheapness of the film stock when you're working on a shoestring budget. He worked at the quick stop, quick and go, whatever the hell it's called. And they would shoot at night when the convenience store wasn't open. And Silent Bob, if you know the View Askew universe, which Joe was just talking about, is Adam Sandler has his own universe. View Askew is the very same way. Most of the films, until the most recent Smith films, had lots of overlap. So if you know the View Askew universe, Silent Bob says at least one thing in every film. And in that regard, he's much like Charlie Chaplin, because we have this idea of Charlie Chaplin always being quiet when he's playing that tramp character. And I haven't watched probably like a quarter of these films, but he says something in every film as well. So Silent Bob's kind of a riff off of that very famous one of the a couple cute little notes. Again, he's doing All Friends. Now, Randall is the guy who's in charge of the video store, which is right next door to the Quick Stop. And Smith was originally going to play Randall, which is why Randall has so many killer lines, because they were going to be for Smith, and then Smith changed his mind. There's a one of my favorite scenes is there's a scene when a lady and her daughter come into the video store.
Yep.
And they're called the lady's called the Happy Scrappy Hero Pup Lady, because she asks for her daughter if they have a copy of Happy Scrappy Hero Pup. And so Jeff Anderson, the actor, in character, Randall goes off and starts talking about porno films to the lady. But Jeff Anderson, the actor, was religious, and he didn't want to read all those titles in front of that little girl. So he asked that the little girl be removed. And so they just edited around that and because, it's all these horrible made-up porno film titles. Similarly, when Jay does his dance scene in about the middle to the last part of the film, Jay does his dance scene. He's too nervous, and he doesn't want people around. So everyone went inside the Quick Stop while Jay shot that scene. So my issue with, the silliness abounds with Smith. But to me, he breaks. You go Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Clerks 2, and it's right after Clerks 2 that he starts getting into some really odd films. Okay, in between there he does Jersey Girl. Then he does a film with Bruce Willis called Cop Out that he has talked about in a lot of his live. He oftentimes does like speaking engagements. So it's like stand up, but he's telling stories about his life. And Willis and he did not get along at all. Zach and Miri make a porno. That's kind of cool because that was filmed in Pittsburgh, and two kids I actually taught were the kids that are in that. They have a couple of lines at the beginning in the coffee store and a couple at the end at the stadium, and I taught those kids, and they just got cast as extras because Kevin Smith liked them. So that's kind of cool. But then he gets into Red State Tusk and Yoga Hosers, and those films are. And that's where I just start wondering what the hell is going on. And he brings it back with the reboot of Jay and Silent Bob, which we'll get to eventually. That's enough for now, Eric. Go right ahead.
All right. Moving on to my number 2. Where'd I put it? Oh, well, I can't find it. Number 2, Caddyshack. Best golf movie ever.
What a great film.
Happy Gilmore's a close second, but Caddyshack, yeah. It could have been under the National Lampoon banner because it was written by guys that were all either in the National Lampoon troupe called the Lemmings, or Doug Kinney, who was the co-founder. And great movie on Netflix about him, starring Will Forte, is A Stupid and Futile Gesture. So if you liked Animal House, if you liked Caddyshack, definitely got to watch it. And I was this close to putting Animal House on the list. But I think maybe down the line we might do a college humor, raunchy college humor.
Okay.
So many great ones out there, and Animal House started it all. But with Caddyshack, a lot of people don't realize originally Bill Murray, who was in the Lemmings as well, that was pre-Saturday Night Live. Chevy Chase was in it, Gilda Radner, all these great comedic geniuses. Well, originally Bill Murray was only supposed to be there for 2 days. And what a lot of people might not realize is his older brother, Brian Doyle Murray, was one of the writers of the script. He and Harold Ramis and Douglas Kinney. And he plays the head of the Caddyshack. So he's the guy, losing at the track and making the caddies make up for it by charging 50 cents for a Coke, which, now you look 50 cents for a Coke. What? But, back in 1980, and a lot of the people, because of that, they don't realize that Brian Doyle Murphy, or yeah, Murray, he designed Bushwood off of the golf club that their family was members of in Florida.
Oh, nice. I did not know that.
Yeah, and they actually shot at a place down in Florida. And of course, they didn't tell them about the explosions at the end. You know, they were very vague about speaking about how they were going to shoot on the course and inside the clubhouse and everything. And but yeah, Bill Murray was only supposed to be there for 2 days, and then the exec said the gopher is so cute, we need him in more scenes. So because they wanted more gopher scenes, Bill Murray.
More Bill Murray.
Yeah. Because originally he was slotted for the Cinderella, which was basically completely improv. You know, they just said, okay, we want you to do something outside here in this area, and we're just going to let you go. And so Cinderella story, completely improv. It wasn't in the script. And then, you know, I mean, now I don't know if it's still in existence, but at one point, Bill Murray, who's done a lot for his brothers, who've all been in movies and TV shows and comedy sitcoms, whatever, they went in as a business venture and opened Caddyshack, a golf themed sports restaurant down in Florida, where they're from.
Oh, okay.
So,
huh.
But a couple of tidbits most people might not have known.
Rodney Dangerfield, who had been a stand-up for a long, long time, but this is the mid-'70s is when we start to see stand-up comedians actually break into film. Like Richard Pryor does like Brewster's Millions, and Richard Pryor had done a few films in the early 70s, but more like big box office, more mainstream kind of films he gets into. And then obviously Rodney Dangerfield. Those are the two biggest names I can think of as far as stand-up guys being leading guys in film. I don't know that we count SNL guys as stand-up guys, but then you know, they paved the way for all those SNL dudes, Chevy and Belushi and Aykroyd, etc.
Can I just say, this might be the only movie I've ever liked Chevy Chase in.
That is so funny you said that. I was telling Eric.
Listen,
not a big fan
you know what? There are other movies that he's in that I like, but I don't know that I like his parts in them.
Yeah.
I just like the film. This movie, he's actually pretty funny throughout the movie at times. I don't think he's a detriment at all. I've just never been that big of a Chevy Chase fan at all. I don't understand the man's comedy all that much. So Caddyshack was one of the first ones that I really liked of his, really the only one. And the other thing I loved about Caddyshack was my father, whenever he would turn on that movie, my father, like, when he would laugh, it would be like a chuckle. It was never really anything big. Caddyshack would have him cracking up every time. He'd seen it 100 times, and it always had him cracking up. So it was the first one I had to watch. I was like, what the hell is he finding so funny? All right, and then I watched it, and I was like, all right, it's pretty funny, pretty good.
Yes, Cam, I think he is as well. Joe, I'm totally with you. To me, he's okay in Caddyshack. I think there are like at least 3 or 4 guys that outshine him. My favorite Chase movie would be European Vacation. That's the one that I like him in. But I don't get – when I look at that original cast, like Murray, Belushi, Aykroyd, Chase, he finishes 4th as far as guys who make me laugh. Chevy Chase does, because I also don't get his humor. It never really stuck with me. It's a lot of bumbling and physical stuff, and if I want that stuff, I'll go to Jim Carrey or someone else who I can't think of right now.
Yeah, well, at least somebody who pulls it off well. He doesn't even really pull it off well, and that's I've never understood how he's actually one of the worst movies I ever saw him in was Funny Farm, because it was so based around him. It was just a terrible film. At least I thought it was.
But the lamb fries scene,
yes,
hilarious.
That the lamb fries saves at least part of the movie, but it leans on his acting so much that while it's a well-written movie, every time I have to watch him pull off a part, I'm like, this movie could have been so much better with somebody else in it, in my opinion.
Yeah. But yeah,
Um,
the funniest line in the movie to me wasn't even his. Most people don't got a like it takes for them testicles.
Yep. Yeah. That was yep. That was in the movie Funny Farm, Joe. And
yeah.
that was yeah. Chevy didn't have any really good lines. I don't know if he's ever had a line that you remember. Do you guys know a Chevy Chase line?
No. Well, hold on. Because I've seen European Vacation so much.
Christmas
There's
Vacation.
There's a scene where his son, Russ, is thinking that two people are going to have sex in this French cafe. And Russ says, Dad, I think he's going to pork her. And he's like, he's not going to pork her, Russ. So I remember that one. But because I just love that the dad doesn't get upset or nothing. He's like, he's not going to pork her, Russ. It just uses the same damn term. That's it. That's the only Chevy Chase line that stands out to me. He's not going to pork her, Russ.
That's it.
The comic genius of Ted Knight in a supporting role in Caddyshack I love is Judge Smales. I still, to this day, will say to my kids, you'll get nothing and like it, because I just loved Judge Smales
I want
in Caddyshack.
a hot dog. I want a hamburger. I want... Yep.
Now, Billy, to be fair, I haven't seen Fletch, and I have heard many people say that is probably his best film.
He can't have a best film because he can't make good movies.
I'm not there. But let's go ahead and let's get the next Adam Sandler joint rolling, Joe.
All right. So my next one is one that is unanimously loved in my household. Sam loves it. My sister loves it. My cousins love it. Everybody loves it. And that's Big Daddy, the 1999 film that really, I guess you could say, was the first film that Adam got to make where he didn't have a whole lot of budget constraints around him. And that's because of the films previous to it. So this is right after Waterboy, after Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, and all these films wound up being hidden gems and successes in the box office, right? That caught a lot of people off guard, and it made a lot of money. So while they're filming Big Daddy, the studio actually calls Adam Sandler and says, hey, you know, a lot of those films, things you wanted to do with this film, the different things you wanted to do, feel free to do it now because we've got some extra money to run with here. So feel free to go ahead and do whatever you want. Enjoy it. Have some fun with it because we've got the money to do it now. So you've got, if you could go back to that first picture you put up, Joe, because this is a very cool story of the girl in the bar with Julian. This scene right here, that's the kid Julian, right? And then you have right there, that is Jackie Sandler. That's Adam Sandler's wife, who you will always find in Adam Sandler movies in some small role, one way or another. But the cool story behind this one is that's actually the first time her and Adam meet each other.
Oh,
they meet each other on the set of Big Daddy, and they get married 2003, and the rest is history. Now they've got the kids together, the production company together, but this scene is actually the first time they ever meet ever in their life. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing to have in this movie. And as Joe already put up, the Scuba Steve character, another thing from Adam's childhood. This is based on a toy called Diver Dan. I've never heard of the toy. Apparently, Adam Sandler did. And he took Diver Dan and created his own thing called Scuba Steve. So it's just cool things like that. But the whole premise behind the movie, right? Adam Sandler is a 30-something-year-old slacker who went to college. His father's a successful lawyer. All of his friends are successful lawyers. He went to law school. He graduated with high honors and all that stuff. Then he got hit by a baseball, sued, got some money, and became a toll booth attendant. And just wanted to live his life off that money and do nothing, basically. That's what he wanted to do. He was happy working the toll booth and chilling in New York with his friends, right? So basically, he finds himself at a crossroads. His girlfriend leaves him. He doesn't know what to do with his life. When a kid gets dropped off on his doorstep with a note saying that she's his best friend's kid, who also lives with him. His best friend says, well, you know, do what you got to do. Take him to child services. He's in Japan at the moment, so he doesn't know what's going on. of course, Adam finds out through child services that they're going to actually put the kid up in, basically a state facility until they find him a home. He feels bad, says, no, let the kid stay with me. And then in his world, he makes up his mind that the way to win his girlfriend back is to adopt this kid and show her he's ready to grow up. This is only something that makes sense in an Adam Sandler movie, by the way. In no other place in the world do we think that bringing a child into the equation is going to fix a problem relationship. Nobody else figured that out except for in an Adam Sandler movie. So Julian is actually the name of the kid in the movie, and he's played by two kids, actually. He's played by twins, okay? He's played by Cole and Dylan Spruce. And these two twins were actually so different that's why Julian had two different aspects to him in the movie. They had Cole play him when he was a little over hyper and peed in the bushes and everything else. And then they had Dylan play him when he was the nicer version of Julian who listened and was very polite and all those things. The two kids were very different, and Adam loved them both, so he wanted them both in the film. And a funny part is actually at the end when Adam picks up Julian and says, hey, bud, how you doing? You still got that tooth missing? Both of the twins had lost a tooth right before they shot that scene. And Adam actually goofed and said, hey, dude, you still got that tooth missing? It wasn't an actual scene. He just said it. And they just kept it in the film as that. This movie is actually Adam's most successful movie up until Hotel Transylvania 2 gets released. Domestically, this is his most successful, US-wise. Worldwide, Adam always does pretty well in the box office, but US-wise, he just doesn't draw the numbers in the box office the way a lot of people would assume that he does. But this one draws in $163 million in the US. It was his most successful run until Hotel Transylvania 2 came out, and then finally knocked him off at that point. Funny thing, though, is that Adam Sandler was not actually the first person they picked to play Sandy Koufax. He was not the first choice to play Sandy. He was not the first choice. They had Jim Carrey. They've had Bill Murray was a choice. I'm sorry. They had Jim Carrey, Bill Murray, and I can't remember the third individual's name. I'm probably going to remember when we get off of here, and it's going to drive me nuts. Jim Carrey was actually their first choice, and they were sticking with Jim Carrey. And Jim Carrey turned it down because, and maybe Eric can help me here, I believe at the time, Jim Carrey had a couple of his own films coming out. We're talking 1999 here. So what? Maybe like Ace Ventura or something like that was coming out?
Ace Ventura, Cable Guy. No, Cable Guy was more 95, 96. Ace Ventura had been out for a little bit, but it was right before he kind of got ostracized by the Hollywood and everybody else coming out against Vaccines. And, so now Jim Carrey's kind of working his way back into people's good graces. But, yeah.
But also,
Aldens.
The studio
Man on the Moon.
Oh, Man on the Moon. There we go. Perfect.
Me, Myself, and Irene, and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. All of those within a year.
There we go. All right. So the studio should also thank Adam for saving the title on this one, by the way, because the original title when Adam joined the cast was Guy Gets Kid. That was the original working title. Guy Gets a Kid. That's what they were going to do. Also, the twins weren't going to play Julian at first. Adam wrote the role, helped write in the role for Kathy Lee Gifford's daughter, or son, I'm sorry. He wanted Kathy Lee Gifford's son to play the role. He contacted Kathy Lee, gave her the script. She then called the studio and said, tell Adam we said thank you, but my sons pee at home, not on buildings.
Kathy Lee's a piece of work.
To which Adam responded and sent her a picture of the kids peeing on the building. And it was actually a push pump. They weren't actually peeing on anything.
Right.
It was a pump that shot liquid out. And he said, these kids don't pee on anything either, Kathy, but it's fine. We understand. Have a good life. And the other thing to note in this is the Steve Buscemi cameo. He is the homeless gentleman in this one. Buscemi has become a standard in Sandler films, but in just the weirdest roles you will ever see most of the times.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Quite often he plays a homeless guy. He played a homeless cross-eyed guy who liked weird pizza in Mr. Deeds. He played a homeless guy in this one. He picks the weirdest roles. Huh?
McDonald's breakfast.
Yeah, McDonald's breakfast. The whole movie, he remembered the McDonald's breakfast, by the way. He kept, every time he saw him, you owe me a sausage McMuffin. Like, so Buscemi's always had a weird role in Sandler films. More recently, he's had a few that he's actually had like some real roles in Sandler films, not just quick little cameos or whatever. But again, same thing to note with this. You got Alan Covet in it. You've got quite a few others, and Peter Dante and others. But Covet is actually one of the guys who helps write things. He's been in over 30 Adam Sandler films. He's written multiple ones. Adam stays true to his friends, to the people he considers family, and he always gets them in his films in one way or another.
And he wrote Grandma's Boy.
Yes. If you didn't see Grandma's Boy, by the way, you got to see it. No Sandler in that one, but
hilarious.
He kills that one. They absolutely kill that one. One of the better Happy Madison movies you'll run into.
Buscemi also was pretty serious in Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, definitely.
I like seeing Buscemi in the
Fargo.
Sandler movies. Yeah, because it's something different for Buscemi. You know, we're used to seeing him in very serious roles and things like that. All of a sudden, we see him in Sandler movies, and he genuinely just looks like he's there to have a good time real quick. That's what he looks like he's there for.
Yeah, he actually has done a lot of serious stuff, Cam. You just must not have seen it. And, of course, the great HBO series Boardwalk Empire.
Yes.
And he, of course, played, I believe, a cousin of Tony Soprano's on The Sopranos in the earlier seasons.
He was,
seasons.
He was the cousin who came back from jail and caused the war, basically.
Yep.
Yeah. Good stuff, Joe. That's cool. I love Buscemi. The ugliest man ever to get an acting job. But I love that dude. I don't know. He's got to be super talented if he's going to get a job in those looks.
He makes me feel good about my teeth.
Yeah, he's the reason I still think I got a shot at making it in the movie world.
Yeah. All right, so we'll move over to Mallrats, Smith's second film. The reason I chose this one is because it's one of the stupidest films that I completely enjoy. I mean, it just makes no sense. It is really just a bunch of random events kind of thrown together. There's a vague idea of a plot in there. But what it really does is it starts to broaden the View Askew universe, right? So you have Jay and Silent Bob, and then you have Dante and Randall, who Dante, of course, is the guy. I wasn't even supposed to work today. He's the guy who does the quick stop, and Randall is the video guy. And we'll see them in small cameos through many films. But here we get a few other characters, a couple female characters, which we don't see that often in Smith films. And more importantly, Ben Affleck. All right. Yep. Ben Affleck in an early role. And he then appears in like 3 or 4 Kevin Smith films straight, because he goes to Chasing Amy, which he's really good in. Then he does Jersey Girl, and then he does Dogma with Matt Damon. Kevin Smith has a very funny story. I think it was Jersey Girl. And Ben Affleck is still not a big deal right now. His star is on the rise during this, right? And Kevin Smith, Jersey Girl is a pretty serious film. It's a romantic drama with some comic elements. He's writing and directing. That's the Smith film I know the least about. But he does something, and Affleck says to him, "Wouldn't it be better if my character said blah, blah, blah?" And Smith and Affleck are friends. And Smith says, "Look, motherfucker, you want to write your own shit, and make a film with it? You go right ahead." Cue Good Will Hunting and a fucking Oscar. Affleck wrote that screenplay, right?
Right,
so
right,
it's just one of those things that Ben obviously had some good ideas early on. But Ben isn't even the character that he winds up playing as part of the View Askew universe that comes out in Chasing Amy, this comic artist. Ben is just this really slimy guy who works at, I think, the men's clothing store. But that's where we start to see Ben Affleck and Kevin Smith gives him an early break.
Who likes to get women in very uncomfortable positions.
It was
like the back of a Volvo.
it's a great set of jokes. And of course, he's trying to get with Shannon Doherty. Speaking of women that people have a hard time working with, there's her and then Linda Fiorentino in Dogma. Smith has said they were both difficult to work with, although Fiorentino, I guess, was really bad. Doherty was just kind of a diva. But she is a pretty big name for this time. But my favorite name is because he was just a bit actor at this point when he does Mallrats. And he doesn't jump to fame till, I don't know, about 15, 20 years later. Walking Dead fans, David Rooker, right? He plays, what's his character's name, Joe? Because he's on early.
Oh.
He's the Archer's brother. He's the Archer's brother. What's his name?
Oh, no. In The Walking Dead, he's Merle. I'm sorry. Merle. I thought you were asking me in that movie who he played. In Walking Dead, he's Merle. He's Daryl's brother.
Yes. Okay. So Merle plays Mr. Fenning, and Mr. Fenning is his name. And what I love is that when there's a big joke in Mallrats that involves, because Fenning is the bad guy, Merle is the bad guy, and there's a joke that involves a guy wiping his ass with his hand, then eating some melted chocolate pretzels and shaking Merle's hand and giving him the chocolate pretzels after he's touched him with his ass hand. All right. It's one of the big gags in the movie. When Merle was doing early press stuff for Walking Dead, people would come up with bags of chocolate pretzels to give to him, which I thought is great. All those Mallrats fans out there. So outside of the reason I like this film is the silliness, but making that View Askew universe breathe. In line, it's weird. Clerks takes place the day before Mallrats. Mallrats is actually the day after Clerks in the View Askew universe. Dante and Randall make a cameo, and we get the introduction of Jason Lee, who is not a big actor until this point, and who I absolutely love in all the Kevin Smith films. Mm-hmm. There's a great shot of Jason Lee and Jeremy London, who I guess Jeremy London plays TJ. I think that's his name, the male lead. He was also a nightmare to work with, from what Smith says. London and Jason Lee are in a shot, and there's this huge comic collection. Well, it's Kevin Smith's comic collection that he got to buy back after the money he made from Clerks. So he put it in the shot, which was kind of fun. This also has Stan Lee in it. There's a lot of comic stuff. Smith goes to his comic roots. I'm a big comic book fan, so I was geeking out. We get a Stan Lee cameo in this one. Stupid, silly, fun, must see TV if you're a View Askew universe guy. But if I was telling you, is it truly a top 3 Kevin Smith film? Maybe not. But as silly goes, it's damn silly.
Also, it's important to know. I think a lot of people would say, how to get Stan Lee in a movie so early on when he wasn't really making that much money yet. To cast a guy like Stan Lee, number one, as I believe it, Stan Lee and Kevin Smith were friends through the comics. They had gotten to know each other. And number two, Marvel and Stan Lee weren't the big name they are today.
No.
Like, Marvel Comics were still Marvel Comics, sure, but it wasn't a multi-billion-dollar industry at this point.
No.
You're talking about a much smaller world at that point.
Yeah. And the reality is, a couple years later, they're going to declare bankruptcy, and Sony is going to buy the rights to Spider-Man and the X-Men, which is why those first Marvel films of the 2000, 2005, 2008, whenever Iron Man comes out, that's all Sony produced stuff. That's not Marvel stuff. That's Sony buying licensing from Marvel. And now Marvel has gone so big that they wanted those things back, which, as you saw with Tom Holland, Spider-Man, and Civil War, they've got some of that back. They haven't been able to get the X-Men back. Sony also has the FF yet. So Marvel wants to get all that back, and Sony is not, playing friendly with them. But Marvel could have gone under. They very well could have gone under in the late 90s.
And then they mortgaged themselves to the hilt opening Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
And they filmed Iron Man and Hulk pretty much back to back. And if either one of those movies had failed, especially Iron Man, it would have put Marvel out of business.
Cool stuff.
But
interlocking threads. But go ahead, Eric. Bring us your last one.
Okay, well, I was just going to say real quick. I love that Ethan Suplee was, or
Ethan Suplee
or whatever.
Yeah.
Staring at the 3D picture puzzle that you're supposed to unfocus your eyes. I can never see those fucking pictures.
Ethan Suplee, who has lost a ton of weight and is doing. And he's doing something like, is he doing some kind of martial arts or fitness thing nowadays? Like has a channel on YouTube or something?
He has a podcast. I follow him actually on IG. Let me pull it up. Go ahead and go to your number one, Joe.
Okay. So I'll do my number one first then. And when it came to Adam's number one here, it was tough, right? Because like I said, I'm an Adam Sandler fan. Like I won't even deny it. There have been maybe 2 Adam Sandler films throughout the years I didn't like. Okay. Maybe 2, right? But I have to disagree with my friend. It's the greatest golf movie ever made that takes number one. And that is Happy Gilmore. That's right. The Price is Wrong, bitch. Here we come. Okay. So Happy Gilmore, we're talking 1996 here. So this is really very early when Adam's being considered a leading man at this point. It's only the second movie I believe he's taken the lead in, really. Billy Madison would be the first one where he had the lead role. And this based off of a guy who thinks he's a hockey player. That's what he believes. He believes he is a hockey player, but he sucks. And his grandmother's losing the house. They need money. And all of a sudden he finds out that he can drive a golf ball farther than any human being that's ever lived. I mean, we're talking from the tee to the green in one shot. That's what he can do here. So he decides to take up golf. Now he can't putt to save his life. He gets on the green with one shot, and then it takes him 6 other tries to get it into the hole. He doesn't know what he's doing, but if he can get 10th, 11th place here and there, he's making money. He can save his grandma and her home and all these other things, a whole lot of things that make no sense, right? But the movie's just fun. And it does something that at my age, because I'm 12 at the time, I didn't think possible. It made golf interesting. I didn't think that was humanly possible at 12 years old. At 12, no. I looked at golf as, well, that's where people go when they're ready to die, I guess. They go on the golf course and they just shuffle through their last few days because it just looked like the worst thing in the world to me. I didn't see how it could be fun, really, right? Well, Adam proved me wrong. So this one stars Adam Sandler, Christopher McDonald, who, of course, is Shooter, right? The Shooter McGavin role. He plays Shooter. You've also got Carl Weathers, who plays Adam's coach, Chubbs. And a funny little note here. So Chubbs is missing his right hand in the movie, right? He says it gets taken by a gator. Carl Weathers and Adam decided to do that together to pay homage to the Predator movies. And like a little inside joke where in the Predator movies, Carl gets the hand taken off.
Oh, yeah. I never realized that.
So they did just a little, there you go, Predator fans. Something a little for you guys to remember on, right? The Happy Gilmore character is actually based on a real character. It's based on a kid that Adam grew up with who played hockey, right? But Adam and him would play golf when they were younger, apparently. And I don't know if they would play or if they would just go to the driving ranges. And Adam could never outdrive him. And Adam swore to God in his mind that the reason this guy could drive a ball so well was because he played hockey, that he got his arms used to that motion and he could so that's exactly where the Happy Gilmore character came from. It came from a friend of his when he was a kid. And he was convinced that that's why this kid could play golf so well, was because he played hockey first. I don't know if that's got any actual facts to it, but of course, the one scene that Happy Gilmore will forever be known for is when him and Bob Barker get into an all-out fist fight, and Bob Barker wins. And most people would say that's silly, that's crazy. How could Bob Barker, an old man, beat up Happy Gilmore? I'm sorry, I keep putting the companies together, right? Happy Gilmore. Well, I'm here to tell you one thing. Bob Barker is a living, breathing, walking badass, or he was at least, right? The man was in He was in the Navy, I believe. But beyond that, he received a black belt under Chuck Norris.
Oh, no kidding.
If you get a black belt from Chuck Norris, you're a bad man. Okay? You are a bad man.
Joe, just looking at him in this picture, he looks really fit for his age.
Yeah.
You know?
He received the black belt under Chuck Norris, who he also credited with setting him on the path to total serenity, or as he put it, to just perfect balance in his world. Between being him and being a warrior and all those other things, Chuck helped him find his center, if you will, which seems the opposite of what Chuck Norris would do for people, but whatever, who knows, man. So yeah, he earned his black belt under Chuck Norris, and this fight was also the very first award winner for the MTV's Fight of the Year at the Movie Awards. So this won the best fight. And
That's
Adam
silly.
Sandler, when he gets up there to accept the award, actually says, I want to thank Bob Barker for being 95 years old and still letting me punch him in the face. That was the way he accepted the whole thing. And the whole movie was done so well, but really, the guy they picked to play the bad guy in this film, Shooter, right? Christopher McDonald, he made the whole thing work so well because he was perfect at pissing off Happy. He was perfect at getting under Adam's skin, but he almost turned the role down. He actually did turn it down twice because he said he wanted more family time and he didn't think it made sense coming off of his last Adam Sandler film to come into this now. He didn't think that the two guys made sense and all these other things. But luckily for Adam, he went and played a round of golf and he won and got inspired and then called his agent and said, does Adam still want me to play the role? Shooter was back born. And I have a fact for you, Joe. One that I think you'll like. You ready for this one?
Go ahead.
So hold on, I'm finding it right now. I'm going nuts here. All right, yeah, here we go. So do you watch you said you were a Bond fan, right?
Yeah.
All right. So Happy Gilmore in the movie, he has a 7'2" boss who is just menacing looking and evil looking, right? Well, this 7'2" boss was also to pay tribute to the James Bond films. Why? He was Richard Kiel, who played Steel Tooth super assassin Jaws in the James Bond film, The Spy Who Loved Me, 1977. And when he came out for the role, Adam said, there's no need to audition. You're the guy. We want you because you just fills too many of my absolute things that I idolize about this film world. And he was perfect for it. And the cult fans, if you will, the fans who have been hardcore Bond fans, found out he was in the movie and went absolutely nuts over it. They wanted shirts of the guy. They wanted everything else. I mean, Sandler said him and his friends were pressing T-shirts in their basement of the guy's face to sell out of his backyard because people wanted so many of the shirts.
That's killer.
Well, it was talk about one of the iconic bad guys for James Bond. Jaws was, he wasn't the supervillain, but he was the best henchman ever, in my opinion.
My question to you guys, well, I mean, Eric might know better than Joe. I don't know how much Joe watches the Happy Gilmores and all that. So we all saw how well Shooter was played by Christopher, right? How good do you think it would have gone if Kevin Costner had gotten the role instead?
Wow, I can't even see Kevin Costner in an Adam Sandler film.
Because Costner had just gotten done with Tin Cup.
Tin Cup, okay.
Okay. They were actually looking at Costner because McDonald had turned them down at this point. He had turned them down twice. So they were in talks with Costner, and the only reason McDonald was able to sweep back in and take it was because the day that Costner was going to call in to accept the role, he decided to go shopping instead, and he was going to call him when he got home.
Pre-cell phone.
Yeah, pre-cell phone, yeah.
Yep. So when he gets home and makes the call, the role's already been taken. Sorry, Kevin. He says no harm, no foul, and they move on from the whole thing. But it very easily could have been Kevin Costner playing Shooter in that one. And it could have been a whole different movie because of that. We don't know, right?
Yeah. If there are any, go ahead, Jim.
No, go ahead, dude.
If there are any Twilight Zone fans out there, by the way, Richard Kiel is the alien in one of the. It's always in a top 10 list. The episode is called "To Serve Man," and Richard Kiel is the alien and the main protagonist. And I will not spoil that one because the ending is genius. You know, Twilight Zone always had those great endings. This is even good for Twilight Zone.
Right.
So,
just the one last thing I wanted to add. Like I said, Adam's always had his arguments with the critics and his wars with critics. While this was loved by fans everywhere, Happy Gilmore is widely seen as one of his greatest films ever. That year, it also got him a Razzie nomination for Worst Actor's Performance Ever. So the critics still killed him for the movie. What are you going to do? That's why he made the 100% Fresh recently that basically said Rotten Tomatoes can kiss his ass. Adam Sandler's the man. I don't care what Rotten Tomatoes says.
Yeah, well, Rotten Tomatoes isn't the be-all, end-all, for sure.
No, definitely not. But that's about it for me, guy. Oh, and also Ben Stiller makes a cameo in this as the evil nurse at the home.
Yep.
So that's the end of my number one. Eric, I believe we're going to go back to you here, right? Yes?
All right.
Yeah, we're doing?
Well, Camo Cam earlier mentioned that if somebody didn't have this on their list, you know, I don't know what, but to me, it's got a lot of silly aspects, but there's also a lot of intellectual stuff in there when they're talking about how their leader of their commune, or not commune, but their leader of the community is voted on, and you know all that. There's a lot of political stuff going on, as well as some intellectual stuff, because I was very close to putting that on my list. But my number one, and they kind of set the premise with this, or they set the standard, and that's Airplane. Airplane was written by David and Jerry Zucker and Jim Abrams, and they had been friends for a while. They originally did Kentucky Fried Movie, but that was one I couldn't find. Just like how Joe had Rocky Horror, I wanted Kentucky Fried Movie, and if you haven't seen it, seek it out. But Airplane, it was the first parody movie that I know of, and they parodied a 1957 movie called 0 Hour, and the whole plot line of the movie follows almost exactly to 0 Hour. And plus, in the 70s, you had all those catastrophe movies. You had Poseidon, you had
Towering Inferno.
You had
all the airports.
Yeah, all the airports. They actually almost got sued by, I think it was Columbia, who owned all the airport movies, because they had Airport 74, Airport 77, which is actually supposed to be 75. And so luckily they, their lawyer helped them out, and they were able to release it and everything. And they went on to do, just a plethora of movies. I mean, they did the Scary Movie, which, has been a very successful franchise of its own. They did a sequel to Airplane, Airplane 2, which had some parts, but...
Can I just add on to that Scary Movie comment?
Yeah.
It was a very successful series till they got rid of the Wayans brothers, and then it just became horrible, in my opinion. That's just my opinion, though.
I can see that.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed the first two. Haven't really liked them since then. But
yeah, without the Zucker brothers, I don't think you'd be seeing the Farrelly brothers, because they were heavily influenced.
It's a fair comment.
Kentucky Fried Movie, by Airplane, by Naked Gun, Naked Gun 2.5, Naked Gun 3 3/3, or whatever it was. And originally Leslie Nielsen wasn't even going to get the part. Originally, they had scripted it to be Dom DeLuise.
Are you saying for Airplane?
Yeah, for Airplane.
Oh my goodness.
For Leslie Nielsen's role. Because at that point, Leslie Nielsen was primarily known, as a lot of the other actors, was known for his serious roles. He wasn't known as a comedic actor at that point. But back in the 60s, early 70s, he made a fart noise machine.
Mm-hmm.
And so he ended up giving out a few of those to different cast members and everything else. So, there was many times where they had to reshoot a scene because you'd hear a fart over here and then a fart over there and then a fart over there. And
I just want to say, me and Eric just created our own Beards on Film universe, because now our last episode where I talked about him and his fart machine now ties into this episode. We're creating our own little universe over here.
There we go.
But so Leslie Nielsen, Naked Gun was so close on my list, but I wanted to go back and do some different amazing writing teams. Farrelly Brothers, amazing writers. The Zuckers, great writers with Jim Abrams. And one of the most memorable scenes for me was when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar comes in as the navigator. Well, originally it wasn't going to be Kareem. Originally it was supposed to be Pete Rose, but he ended up having, they made it further in the playoffs than were expected and couldn't make the shooting dates, but he had agreed to do it. So originally it was going to be Pete Rose instead of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And then another one of the things about the cockpit scenes with the little boy and Peter Graves, talking about, have you ever seen a grown man naked, and all these other little pedophilia type references or whatever jokes. They kind of blocked the kid from hearing what was really being said, and what he did hear, he didn't understand because he was 7 or 8 or 9, something like that.
Yeah.
So he didn't get it. And, he's been interviewed about it since he's older. He's like, now I find it hilarious. At the time, I didn't know what everybody was laughing at, And, so to me, it's got the wordplay of, surely you must be kidding. I'm not kidding. And don't call me Shirley, just that kind of stuff. That is silly. It doesn't take, you don't have to be well-read or well-traveled. You see it. You don't have to be from America. You can be from another country. And those jokes are going to work no matter what country, you don't have to have a Harvard education like you do with some of the Lampoon stuff, or some of the Monty Python stuff, can get a little heady, but, Farrelly Brothers, the Zuckers, they're the epitome, and Airplane is the pinnacle of a silly movie to me.
Awesome. This isn't a number one, I'm just doing a Kevin Smith sort of thing. I'm doing his reboot of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back from early 2000. The reboot was, I think, released last year. Here's what I'm going to say about it. If you are a View Askew Universe fan, it is a great movie for like cameo and nostalgia. If you don't like Kevin Smith stuff, then you're going to be the plot is there, but it's really all the cameos and everything else that make it, because Smith does an amazing job of this film of bringing everybody back. From Mallrats all the way to his weirder shit like Tusk. Everybody is in this film one way or another.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoyed that. The story behind this film even ever being made, because, there have been enough Jay and Silent Bob films in Kevin Smith's mind. And Jason Mewes said to Kevin, we should make another Jay and Silent Bob film. And Kevin in his mind is like, I'm never making another Jay and Silent Bob film. But he just kind of pushed Jay aside. Yeah, sounds good. Maybe one of blah, 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 blah. And then Kevin has the heart attack that just about kills him. He was this close to death. And so it made him have one of those moments where he was like, well, shit, let's do it. And so I think this energy is in the film of Smith really wanting to do this. And there's something there that this is one of the better, more recent, let's say of the last 5 or so films that Smith has done, one of the better films that he has done. And when you add all the cameos and everything, it's absolutely fantastic. You get everybody. You get Jason Lee as the homosexual comic book writer who liked Ben Affleck's character in Chasing Amy, whereas he dug a lesbian girl, right? So you have this weird love triangle where no one's getting together with anyone. And then you had that girl who is Amy. You had Matt Damon and as the angel that he played in Dogma. You just have all these guys coming in, bit players, big stars. Ben Affleck, the fact that Ben Affleck came back and did this and that Matt Damon came back and did this kind of blew me away. It just, I think, shows you their love for Kevin Smith because they are heavy hitters. Not everyone came back. Shannon Doherty didn't come back. Linda Fiorentino didn't come back. I already mentioned to you how much trouble that Smith had with them. Smith, this scene was one of my favorites just because I thought it was genius. Smith has always done Comic-Con in San Diego. He's always hosted it or he's done a speaking thing there. And he sets up the plot to be this Jay and Silent Bob, the characters, if you know the universe, their images and likeness have been used and they've never gotten the money for it. And so they're trying to go stop a film being made, which is the premise of the movie they're copying from 2000. But they go to a Comic-Con, but it's called a Chronic Con because it's Jay and Silent Bob and they're always smoking dope. They go to a panel, which is very famous at Comic-Con. You've seen the Avengers panels, the Walking Dead panels, all that stuff. And it's a Clerks panel, and they're all in black and white. All the actors from Clerks that are there are all in black and white, but the room is still in color. And it's just such a nice little touch, if you're a Kevin Smith geek. On its own, it's a good, silly film. He has to make, I guess, some different choices. In the original movie, he gets on the mystery machine with Jay, and they're hanging out with Scooby-Doo and smoking weed. He didn't repeat that this time around, but he did get two guys who are very notorious for weed in the hip hop world, and Method Man and Redman. They hop into a van with them, so it's interesting where he makes changes and where he can stick the same. Rosario Dawson from Clerks 2, she's in there too. So and the little cameo guys like Ethan Suplee, he's in it. It's just, if you're a VOSQ guy, it's really, really fun. It's really, really fun. It's not a bad remake either, as remakes go. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Smith. I would not watch most of his recent stuff. Oh, and one other thing. I don't like how he shoves his family down our throat. Ever since, and okay, whatever. His daughter has been like in his last 4 or 5 films, and she plays a major role in this film. And there's just something about me that I just don't like.
Which film are we talking about? I apologize. I had to go take care of something.
We're talking about the reboot of Jay and Silent Bob's Strike Back. The one they released last year.
I still have not gotten to actually sit down and watch that one. And I'm ashamed of myself for that because I'm a huge Kevin Smith fan. I don't miss much of what he does.
You'll like it then. You'll like it. It's free on Prime right now.
Yeah.
I watched it the night it was available because I've been following Jason Mewes because of his recovery story. And Kevin Smith just because I love his movies. I love his dialogue. A lot of the stuff that they talk about crosses the line, but I find it hilarious. Like Clerks 2, when the interspecies erotica is happening. And then you got
or the ass to mouth.
You have a little religious boy that's all fucked up in the background. I'm sorry, Jesus.
Well, Kevin will bring that shit to his films. He takes a shot at Southwest in this film, so he will bring that shit to his films. Southwest, in case you didn't. Go ahead, Joe.
What I loved about Kevin Smith when I first found him was it was the first time that I watched a movie, and I want this to come out right, where I went, I can do that. That was what I felt about Kevin. This was just a guy from like Jersey who was like, dude, I want to make films, I'm not going to sit here and play around, wait for a studio to give me a shot and all these other things. I'm going to go out and make a damn film. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And
most definitely.
He just shot a film and he built it around the dialogue, like something that most weren't doing back. It was built strongly on the dialogue because 90% of that film is filmed at the friggin' register at a Quick Stop. That's where 90% of the film is. Like,
yep.
I just thought I think he's very good at making a lot out of nothing most of the time. And I love Mallrats.
Yeah, I love Mallrats too.
And I loved in the original Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I love that Mark Hamill played Cockknocker.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And now they have Val Kilmer in this one.
Yep. You know,
the only thing I've ever been mad about Kevin for is that I never, and I don't think I ever will, get a Mallrats 2. And I've always been mad about that one. I always wanted a Mallrats 2. Like, we got a Clerks 2. I don't think it was quite as good as the first one, but that's fine. No. Okay. I always wanted another Mallrats. I always wanted a second one, and you just know it's never going to happen now. There's just no way it's ever going to happen.
No, those characters need to be younger to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jay is looking kind of old. Jay is looking. It's weird how they both flip flop because Kevin lost all that weight, and he's looking young, and Jay has some mileage on him now.
Well, like we said, young. Jay's battling through recovery and things like that. He said he's put himself through quite a bit, man. So. Yeah. You know, props to him for where he is now.
Oh, yeah. If you listen to, and Kevin, of course, when he was doing the films that I don't like so much of his, he started his podcast empire. And one of the podcasts he did was he and Jay, and it was a mechanism to keep Jay clean, because he had just gotten off another thing with heroin, and he had gone through a string of time where he was okay, and then Kevin came up with this idea: let's travel the country or just hang out, whatever, and we can talk about your battles with addiction, and this can be, and it really, according to Jay, it really, really helped him and really, really worked to keep him clean. He's got a daughter now, and so I'm glad the guy turned it around. He's goofy as all shit, but man, he makes me laugh. He makes me laugh.
Well, I don't know how true this is, but I heard that one of the driving forces behind Clerks 2 was to help get Jason some money.
Yes, that's the same thing I heard. Yeah,
because he'd blown through everything he had made in the movies, when he was strung out. Yep. And Jason.
So that's the same thing I heard, because essentially Clerks 2 was the one title he knew. Kevin Smith knew that he had in his pocket that if he presented it to a major studio, they would jump and he could get everybody involved a pretty big paycheck.
Yep.
So I've heard the same thing, Eric. Absolutely.
And, all his comic book buddies on A&E, the Comic Book Man.
Yeah.
He's a guy that if you were good to him when he was nobody, he's going to be great to you now that he's a somebody.
Yes, he looks after his friends.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, I guess that's it, guys. That's Silly Films from 3 different sets of eyes. Joe is coming up with our next one, which, of course, will be 2 weeks from tonight, which will be the 28th. That's going to be a Saturday after Thanksgiving. Anything else? I want to thank those of you that attended, still sticking with us. We still got a half a dozen in here. Thank you very much for stopping by. We hope to see you for the next one. Joe had given us an early idea of what he might be doing. Joe, did you want to share with the
Brian
here? You still have the same idea?
Oh, we're going to the same place. We were going with the Western films. I'm a huge Western buff. I love my Westerns, and there's so many different ones out there. I'm curious to see, because we know Joe was around before TVs were actually even made. So is he going to come with the spaghetti Westerns and stuff like that? I think this is going to be a great one. I'm excited to get my top 3 out there and have a lot of fun with this one. So the Westerns definitely had to be done.
And once again, guys, if you want, I know Jeff gave us an idea that I'm seriously contemplating doing. If you have an idea for something you'd want to see or talk about, DM any of us. We'd good. Thanks for popping in here, Ryan. That's very sweet of you, dude. just let us know. We're going to do our first 3 like spotlight picks, and then after that, we're going to see where we go next. If we're going to do a new round or do something different. So, but yeah, Westerns, Joe, I think we could go to that well many a time if this show keeps going for a while, which is what's great about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many different ways to take it, but like you said, right now we're just taking a broad view on a few topics and then see where it leads us and stuff. So just your favorite Westerns, gentlemen. That's all I'm asking for. The ones that you enjoy watching over and over, bring them to the table and let's talk about them a little bit.
And Ron, stoner movies, that was already on my thoughts because.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I do want to. I'm sorry. There was something I wanted to say.
What?
How did we have a top 3 silly? Okay, and neither one. I took the Adam Sandler road, right? So I had to stay with Adam, right? How did nobody else grab Idiocracy? How did that happen?
Great movie, but it really didn't set a standard for anything, in my opinion. I thought it was.
We're talking about silly though. Like that movie's built on just being as dumb as you can be.
Well, it's not about being dumb.
I love Super Troopers, dude. I so thought about doing that whole line, the Broken Lizard line. I thought about doing the whole thing, honestly.
Yep.
All right, guys. So until 2 Saturdays from now, take care. I guess that's about it. We don't have any cool clothes or anything. We'll call it a night. See y'all later.
Thanks, guys.